In the sprawling city of Olori, a metropolis where ancient mahogany trees stand defiant against glass skyscrapers, the air always smells of a mixture of expensive perfume and spicy street food. This is a city where fortunes are made by noon and lost by sunset. Zane was not just a blacksmith, he was a sculptor of fire. Born in the rugged highlands, he was the son of a village ironworker and a mother who was a master weaver. He had won a national scholarship to study structural engineering, but he found blueprints too silent. He spent his university nights in the forge, merging modern physics with ancestral metallurgy. By 30, he was the architect of iron. He lived in a loft filled with rusted relics and sleek prototypes. He was a man of few words, often seen with a smudge of soot on his cheek and a faraway look in his eyes, as if he were calculating the melting point of the world around him. Sonko, conversely, was a creature of the digital ether. He was the alchemist of influence. The son of a disgraced former minister and a high society socialite, Sonko grew up in the shadows of power. He was educated in London and Paris, returning with a degree in communications and a deep-seated need to prove he could rebuild the family name. His marketing firm didn't just sell products, it sold irrealities. Sonko was charming, calculated, and possessed a smile that never quite reached his eyes. He lived by the mantra, "The lion does not need to hunt if he can convince the gazelle to walk into his kitchen." Nola was the daughter of a retired librarian and a botanist. She grew up in a house where every wall was covered in books and every corner was filled with ferns. She didn't just study interior design, she pursued it like a calling. After topping her class at the National School of Arts, she spent 2 years traveling the continent, apprenticing with nomadic tent makers and royal court decorators. She was the weaver of spaces. Her training allowed her to see a room not as four walls, but as a living organism. Despite her immense talent, she was currently operating out of a tiny converted garage. Her family's wealth had long since dried up, leaving her with nothing but a sophisticated palate, a brilliant mind, and a singular focus on her craft. Nola met Zane under circumstances that involved a literal explosion. She had been searching for someone to create a liquid metal handrail for a client. She walked into Zane's forge just as a pressurized valve blew. Amidst the steam and the roar, she didn't scream, she picked up a heavy wrench and handed it to the soot-covered man struggling with the pipe. "You're late with the talk," she said calmly. Zane looked up, wiped his brow, and grunted, "Most women run away from fire." "I'm not most women," she replied. "I'm the designer who's going to make you famous." He laughed a rare gravelly sound, and they spent the next 4 hours arguing over the carbon content of steel while sharing a single bottle of cold malt. Her meeting with Sonko was far more curated. Sonko had seen her at a gallery opening and decided she was the perfect rebranding project for his personal life. He staged a chance encounter at an elite coffee shop. He accidentally spilled a drop of espresso on her handbag bag. "Oh heavens," he gasped with practiced horror, "I've ruined a masterpiece." Nola looked at the tiny spot. "It's a brown smudge, Sonko, not a tragedy." "To me, any blemish on perfection is a tragedy," he countered, flashing a smile that had been honed in mirror sessions. He insisted on replacing the bag with a designer one, which she refused, but he managed to talk his way into a consultation for his office. Nola chose Zane. Their relationship grew in the quiet spaces between their loud professions. It wasn't about fancy dinners, it was about Zane hand-forging a set of ergonomic drawing tools for her because he noticed her hands cramped after 12 hours of sketching. It was about Nola bringing him rare wildflower honey to soothe his throat after a day in the smoke. They were two masters admiring each other's craft. "Two birds of the same feather," the neighbors whispered, "are building a nest of gold." But Sonko was watching. He didn't take no for an answer, he took it as a challenge. He hired a private investigator to shadow Zane, looking for a crack in the Iron Man's armor. The investigator hit pay dirt when he discovered Zane's steel folly. Zane had tried to bypass the city's corrupt metal cartels by importing high-grade alloy from a private source. The source was a shell company owned by a rival of Sonko's father. The high-grade alloy was actually recycled scrap that didn't meet the city's earthquake resistance codes. Zane had already installed the beams into a major luxury hotel. If word got out, Zane wouldn't just be bankrupt, he'd be the man responsible for a potential massacre. The government's building inspector, a man who owed Sonko's family several favors, was already sharpening his pen to sign the arrest warrant. Sonko didn't just offer Zane money, he offered him erasure. The inspector's report disappears, the steel is recertified, and you get enough to replace the beams quietly, Sonko said, leaning back in his leather chair. In exchange, you become the villain in Nola's story. You must break her so thoroughly that she won't look back. Zane, trapped between his integrity and a prison cell, broke. He went to Nola and told her he was moving to Europe with a wealthy patroness he'd been seeing behind her back. You were a summer project, Nola, he said, his voice cracking like dry wood. A man of my ambition needs a foundation of old money, not someone still paying off a garage lease. Nola was devastated, but she was a librarian's daughter, she knew how to read between the lines. She went into a creative hibernation, pouring her grief into a new collection of furniture. Sonko swooped in, playing the role of the refined savior. He launched a massive PR campaign for her, but he was too aggressive. He started showing up at her family's house with expensive gifts for her parents, trying to buy the fortress from the outside in. The end came at the grand gala of Olori. Sonko and Zane were both there, Sonko as a sponsor, Zane as a guest of the patroness he was pretending to date. In the men's restroom, Sonko, drunk on his own perceived victory, cornered Zane. I want my 50 million back, you hammer-swinging peasant. Sonko snarled. She still won't let me into her bed. You didn't break her enough. I did what you asked. Zane yelled, shoving Sonko against the marble sink. I lost my soul for your money. I'm not a refund department. They tumbled out into the hallway, punching and screaming. The high society guests watched in shock as the marketing genius and the architect traded blows and secrets. I bought her from you, Sonko screamed as a security guard tackled him. I paid for the breakup. You're just a cheap hire. The video was on social media before the blood had dried on the carpet. The next morning, both men arrived at Nola's new house. Zane was there to beg for forgiveness, Sonko was there to explain the misunderstanding. They met at the gate. As they started shouting at each other again, the heavy iron doors swung open. Nola stood there, her security guard beside her. She didn't look angry, she looked disgusted. Sonko started first. Nola darling, I did it for us. I wanted to clear the path, Zane interrupted, falling to his knees. Nola, I was desperate. I couldn't go to jail. Nola raised a hand. The silence was deafening. Zane, she said, you sold the one thing I thought was unshakable. And Sonko, you tried to buy something that was never for sale. You are both small men playing a game that I have outgrown. When the moon rises, the sun must bow. My sun is rising. Yours has set. The scandal didn't break Nola, it made her a folk hero. The story of the woman who was too valuable to be bought resonated with every woman in the country. Her first new client was the Queen Mother of the Ashanti, who commissioned Nola to redesign the royal guest quarters. Then came the CEO of the Pan-African Bank, who wanted Nola to design their new headquarters using her truth in materials philosophy. Even the First Lady sought her out to decorate the presidential retreat, citing Nola's unbreakable spirit. Nola moved into a sprawling warehouse district, employing 50 artisans, including the very blacksmiths Zane had once led. She became a billionaire not by selling her heart, but by building a world where integrity was the most beautiful ornament of all. The moral remains, a person who sells their brother for money will eventually find that even the money cannot buy them a brother. In the city of Olori, Nola's name became synonymous with the proverb, gold smudged with mud is still gold, but the mud can never become the sun. Zane lost his reputation, people no longer trusted a man who would sell his love to stay out of jail. Sonko lost his influence, clients didn't want a marketing genius who was a laughingstock on social media. Nola, however, stood on her balcony, looking over the city she had helped beautify. She had learned the greatest lesson of all. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with a clean heart. She was betrayed, yes. But the fire intended to consume her only served to temper her soul into something unbreakable. In the end, she didn't just survive, she reigned. Like and subscribe.